Hello and welcome to National Park Wild. I'm Eric. National parks are loved for their beautiful scenery, recreation, wildlife, and so much more. One major draw of national parks is the escape from the city life and crowds to enjoy some solitude in nature. However, there are a few parks that get particularly crowded in summer, particularly July and August, that should be avoided if you really enjoy the solitude of a national park. There are quite a few out there, but I'm going to highlight 5 that can be quite miserable experiences if you are looking for a quiet natural retreat. Let's jump right in. The first one I must mention is Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee and North Carolina. This is the busiest national park, period, in the US, attracting well over 10 million visitors in recent years, and this is probably double the next most at Grand Canyon National Park. So an important note here is that the park, unlike a few others on this list, is not massive. And in many cases, the most popular things here are very much the most popular. It is quite brutal to try to get parking at a lot of places. So if you're going through on the Appalachian Trail, no big issue there. But if you're trying to do some major things such as Clingman's Dome, or even some of the bigger hikes, Alum Cave even, these can be tough to get to. The park can be backed up quite a bit, with the roads sometimes having hour-long backups because of a deer or a turkey on the side of the road. Other national parks might have the same kind of thing, but it's not usually over a turkey. So Great Smoky Mountains might be the best example of a park that you have to really plan around to avoid crowds and have solitude if that's really what you go to the park for. Next up is Zion National Park in Utah. This is one of the most beautiful national parks in my opinion, absolutely phenomenal canyons, and the main Zion Canyon area I love. However, to get into this park, at least in the summer, even sometimes in the off-season, you most likely will have to endure a 3 to 4 hour wait in your car to enter, which is the worst I've seen in any national park, and from there you cannot drive your car anywhere, which means no parking issues for the most part, yay, but at the same time, you have to take a shuttle bus or your own walking, biking, similar transportation to get to the main Angel's Landing, Narrows, and other great sites. Unfortunately, it's tough. It's tough when you have so many people and a good system of transportation, but not perfect. So you may be waiting quite a bit to get to areas. And if you're a serious hiker, you can probably get to the trails fine, but once you're on the trails, others who already got there will be crowding the trail as well. So if you do not enjoy a busy trail, go to the Kolob Canyon area in the northwest area of the park. There are great hikes and beautiful scenery in this part of the park, and it is very overlooked. So the main reason I thought Great Smoky Mountains was probably worse for crowds is because this area, at the very least, is not too difficult to access, but still very serene, quiet, and a drastic improvement, if you don't like the crowds, over the main Zion Canyon. The next one I imagine everyone expected to be on here, Yellowstone National Park in primarily Wyoming. This one, I have been during some fairly crowded times, and I will say, there is a lot you can do here without worrying about crowds. So many great trails, the underrated Bunsen Peak, some of the smaller geyser basins, getting the Lone Star Geyser even, going up to a ton of the different places. Nearly all of the park is quiet. I found pretty much no one on the roads in some of the evening parts of my visits. However, there are major areas that are probably the worst crowded you will ever see. The main ones are near the entrances of the parks. And there's a good reason the entrances are there. Let's talk Mammoth Hot Springs first. Mammoth Hot Springs is a hard place to find parking, and getting in, you'll be backed up well past the nearby towns, and that is quite a long wait. But at least you can see Roosevelt Arch, and it's kind of cool to be right there. If you're over in the town, just standing outside looking at the entrance, but at the same time, trying to get in can be a nightmare. But Mammoth Hot Springs pales in comparison to the crowds you will experience in the southern parts of the park, particularly near the geyser basins. Old Faithful and Grand Prismatic Spring are stellar natural sights. But to see them, you will have to struggle to find a place to park, and if you're not driving, you'll still have to struggle to find a place to see them. It is a very, very busy area, particularly Old Faithful. Driving, you might be backed up. The amount of cars you'll see along the road, just trying to park there, will be insane. And as an added bonus, the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone can be fairly crowded as well, though that's typically better managed. And Lamar Valley and other wildlife places can sometimes have bison jams, which are obviously going to take some time no matter what. But if there's a lot of cars, it's going to take quite a few hours longer to get from place to place. Anyone who is getting to a meeting at Yellowstone, or trying to start a shift as a ranger, for example, bison jam is often the excuse used, and it is often bought, because it is very, very common in Yellowstone, and no one's going to be like, oh, guess there could have been no bison there, because it's very common and frequent that you'll be waiting 4 hours or so to get across a pretty short stretch of road because of a wildlife sighting. So all of this kind of cancels out the less crowded and more secluded parts of Yellowstone, and as a result, it is definitely one of the parks to avoid in the peak of summer. Try to go in June if you can. The fourth national park we'll discuss is Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona. This is the second most visited national park behind Great Smoky Mountains, and it is crowded in the South Rim. Similar to Zion, the North Rim of this park is not as busy, so that's why it was not as important to mention for me, and I even considered leaving it off. That said, getting into this park, you will see it is very much built around large crowds now. You have hundreds of people at each overlook, taking photos, doing the standard things you would enjoy in a national park. This is nice, but if you want that very quiet Big Bend type canyon picture, you won't get that. Even Bright Angel Trail and the other challenging trails in the area can be quite busy. This is mainly because of the fame of the site. Grand Canyon is probably the most iconic site in the US. But if you do want that solitude, go to the North Rim. Otherwise, you'll want to try to get here at a time where you can still enjoy Phantom Ranch if that's what you go for, but also have less people in the area, and in general just have that quiet, serene nature experience that you are hoping for. It can be a challenge, but not as much as the other three. The next one, on the other hand, that can be a challenge. Yosemite National Park is a busy one in Yosemite Valley. Just like with Zion and Grand Canyon, the main tourist area really gets all the crowds. There are plenty of areas to avoid it. Even some of the well-known Hetch Hetchy, Mariposa Grove areas don't get a ton of people. But you know what does? Half Dome. Half Dome is a challenging hike, but it can be completely lined with people because of how great a site it is and how many hikers want to experience it. You can go 15 miles from the start of that trailhead, and you will still not be able to escape anyone. Not even Zion can really say this. Well, maybe it can for Narrows, but to an extent, Yosemite is the most crowded based on the valley only. The other areas of this one, Bridal Veil Falls, Upper Yosemite, Lower Yosemite, Mist Trail, every aspect of this one part of the park, even trying to get through Tunnel View and getting the photo at Tunnel View, can be next to impossible in the summer. My favorite trips to Yosemite have actually been in spring. Even though you can't do as many hikes, I do like that somewhat serene feeling you get, and it's much more peaceful when there is a good fourth of the people there would be in summer. I'm not trying to say don't go to any of these parks. I'm not trying to say you're the problem if you go to these parks in summer. Everyone is. We all just want to enjoy it. But if you want to try to be a little more strategic with planning to have the best experience without crowds, I do recommend avoiding these 5 parks, along with Acadia and Rocky Mountain and Arches to an extent, along with some others you can ask about in the comments, and try to go to them maybe in the earlier part of summer or the later part starting with fall. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comment down below which national parks you've had crowded experiences in. Subscribe for more national park content. I'll see you next time.